Hey everyone, I'm Paul from Canadian Woodworks, and in this video we're using Chemtec Chem-100 to pour a 3/4 inch thick base color layer on an epoxy pour. Let's get to it. All right, so Chemtec Chem-100 comes in 3-gallon kit or 1-gallon kits, pretty large jugs. The main purpose for this epoxy, at least in my shop, is that we use it as a defect filler. So we're only sometimes using 5 milliliters, 15 milliliters, not very much of the epoxy. So it's kind of awkward getting that much out of jugs like this. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and just got ourselves some barbecue bottles. And this is in a 2-to-1 ratio. Notice the larger bottle versus the smaller bottle. So, and then we very easily can squeeze out a little bit of each product into a medicine cup, which we can measure it, and then we just mix it, and that works very, very well for doing defect filling, which we've done on this table. So even in our medicine cup, we want to mix it very, very well. You want part A and part B mixed fully. Scrape the sides of your container. Make sure you're scraping the bottom of the container. Chem-100 is not UV stable, so it will eventually yellow. So we only really recommend it for colored defects that you're filling, colored pours that you're doing. So we're adding some black drops to this one. So that's our most common use for the Chem-100, just using small volumes to fill up those final little defects that we have after a thick pour. Or on a solid wood tabletop also that has some checks or some cracks, we'll use it there. We also, though, push it to its limit. We're going to pour this 1/2 inch up to 3/4 of an inch in thickness. In about 4 to 6 hours, we're going to be ready to pour the clear epoxy on top of it. It's going to harden that quickly, but you don't want it to harden fully. You still want it to be a gummy bear when you pour your next layer, and it's going to get a chemical bond. If you let this harden fully till it's rock solid, you actually want to do a scuff sand between your next pour. So we're literally going to use this whole kit. Fortunately, we don't have to measure. If you weren't going to use the whole kit, here's a reminder, it's a 2-to-1 by volume ratio, 2 parts of the big jug to 1 part of the small jug. But in our situation, we're just going to dump the entire thing into 1 pail, get it mixed 5 to 10 minutes, scrape the sides, scrape the bottom. Then we're going to add our pearl white metallic powder. Oh yeah. And then we're going to do the pour. So let's push this epoxy to the limits, see how it works. So we're mixing by hand so we don't introduce too many bubbles into the mix. We're also making sure to be scraping the sides as well as the bottom of the container. Chem-100 is a little bit thicker of an epoxy, so it's even more important. And we want to be doing this for about 5 to 10 minutes. By the time you're done, you should pretty much have a crystal clear looking epoxy. All right, we're all mixed up, we're ready to pour. We've already built our form. This is just a standard particle board, tuck taped off fully, sealed it with silicone. Always remember, you gotta have this thing watertight. The epoxy is gonna find that hole and it's gonna leak onto your floor and it's gonna be a disaster. We're gonna pour this epoxy in, and I'm also gonna use this epoxy to coat all the edges to get them sealed up a little bit better. The next layer is going to be crystal clear, so we want to minimize the amount of little bubbles that can possibly come out of the wood. So by using this epoxy to seal the edges, it helps us do that. All right, so that was the pour. That's awesome. Like I said, I'm pushing this product to the limit. This is about 3/4 of an inch thick. That was a full 3-gallon kit. So that's a lot of epoxy for an epoxy that's designed to cure within 24 hours when you used only like 5 milliliters of it. I've done this a few times now. We're going to have about a window of 4 to 6 hours from now where we're going to come back and we're going to be able to do the second pour, which is going to be a crystal clear. We're using a different product. We're going to use Chem-Craft, which is designed for an inch to an inch and a half pour on top of this. So we'll see you in a few hours. All right, so we have an infrared temperature gun, and we're going to be updating you on the temperature of the epoxy because this stuff gets pretty hot. Like I said, pushing it to the limit. Right now, we're looking at about 23.5 degrees just after we poured it. It's been about 3 hours. We're going to follow up with the epoxy that we mixed in the medicine cup. So very low volume to fill defects. It is thickening up, but I can still actually use this epoxy, and I do have a low spot here. So I'm going to drizzle it right on, and it's going to find its way in there. So when you use low volumes of this Chem-100 epoxy, you do have a good amount of working time with it, but it will be sandable within 24 hours, these defects. Let's check out the big pour that we did. Again, this has been about 3 hours. We have 10.5 liters in here, pushing this product to the max. Look at this. It's a gummy bear right now. I can push it, and it's basically a gummy bear. It's insanely hot. Let's check out the temperature. Literally, we've heated up to 77 degrees. That's Celsius. You can feel the heat coming off. This is pushed to the max. A fan on it obviously will help it cool a little bit better than it is. But I actually like this hot temperature because it gives us an amazing swirl pattern. Just show them the pattern. Cool shots now. Now that the chemical reaction has happened, we've gone from a liquid to a solid, the heat's going to dissipate. We don't want to pour our second layer now because the amount of heat that we have here is going to do some bad things to that next layer. So I'm going to wait probably another 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, and then I'm going to be pouring that clear layer. All right, everyone, it's actually the next day, so we didn't catch the epoxy in that stage where you can give it a thumbprint into it and then just do your pour. So we did give it a scuff sand. We used 150 grit sandpaper. We then cleaned it off really, really, really well with our air gun and kind of gave it a wipe down with some shop towels. On top of this, because we have about 1.5 inches in thickness to do, we're using a different product, and that's called Chem-Craft. It's also a 2-part epoxy, 2-part of the A to 1 part of the B. For our situation, we're going to be mixing the entire kit, which is 3 gallons, into a barrel. I always say that. We're going to be mixing it into a pail. And I do like to hand mix it with a stick because it won't introduce very many bubbles. It doesn't take that long, and you're really in control of the process. Scrape the sides of the pail, scrape the bottom of the pail as you mix it. When it's completely clear and you see no striations in the epoxy, about 5 to 10 minutes, you know you're good to go, good to pour. And before we poured, we actually checked the hardness with a Shore-D meter. Glass is 100. And a hard epoxy, in my experience, is anything over 80, and this one reached up to about 88 on the Shore-D scale. So the Chem-100, extremely hard. The Chem-Craft also cures nice and hard. You're going to see a Shore-D of 82 to even up to 87 I've seen with the Chem-Craft. The advantage to this is that when you sand this epoxy, it sands to a dust. I'm constantly putting this through a wide belt sander as well as hand sanding, and our paper do not gum up unlike other brands that we've used in the past. Shore-D meter, you can get them on Amazon if you're interested. So we went ahead, we mixed up the epoxy, and then the fun part, we poured it in. Enough said. It will have little micro bubbles in it for the first 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, but it's going to fully release all the micro bubbles. Super important because we're doing a completely clear top layer on this. And this should have a cure time of about 2 to 4 days to take it out of the mold. Really depends on the volume you're going to be using, the thickness you're pouring at, as well as your shop temperature. We've pushed this to the limit, this product. We use a whole kit at 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches for our coffee table courses. It's really designed for 1 inch thickness, and at 1 inch thickness, 30 liters is okay, even a little bit more, especially if your shop temperatures are around 22 degrees Celsius or below. So that's it, everyone. It's been a few days. Chem-Craft is completely cured. We're ready to do the next steps. So please watch in part 2, where we will be probably putting this through our planer and getting all the finishing done. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions or comments, you know what to do. Just leave them below and we'll get right back to you. If you want to get some of this epoxy, my company, Legacy Lumber, my dealers, at least most of my dealers, carry this product. So all the way across North America. Check out my website, legacylumber.co, and have fun making your own projects. Like, just get in the shop, stop watching YouTube, get going. Smash that like button, everyone. Make it a great one. We'll see you next time.